Hi, everybody. I'm Mike with Heroes Comfort, and I want to thank you for joining me again this week for another short broadcast on grounding your life, gardening your backyard. Again, as we talked last week, garden, gardening your backyard includes your own life, how you manage it, like you would plant a garden or a flower bed. You want good soil, you want to make sure you have good seed, you want to have good fertilizer, you want to have good moisture, all those things. So we're gardening our own backyard. And grounding, of course, is how we can cope and manage with stress, anxiety, depression, those kind of things. Um, Before we get started, I would like to ask that you bow your head with me in prayer if you feel so inclined to. We are a faith based organization that believes in the mighty works of God and the finished works of Jesus Christ, who can get us through all these difficulties of PTSD and the such. So, if you would, just bow your heads. Dear Father, I thank you for each person watching this video this week. I ask God that you give them clarity, wisdom, and knowledge to understand what it is you're trying to say them through my mouth, and in hopes to, not in hopes, God, but in order to help them overcome the adversities of life as a result of their occupations. Lord, we ask these things in your name. Amen. Thank you, folks. Anyways, so a couple of announcements. First one, I'm going to give a shout out to Iowa Methodist Medical Center Life Flight in Des Moines, Iowa. I'm representing today. They are a great team of flight medics and flight nurses and pilots. I'm not sure exactly how many flights they do a month or a year, but I know it's quite a few because they fly over my house quite a lot out in rural Iowa. So big shout out to them. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice of time. And, that being said, I thank you, all flight crews and all EMS crews all over the country, especially the ones that have tragically sacrificed their lives in efforts to help other people. Not not excluding any other occupation. I'm just pointing them out today. Anyway, the next thing I want to mention is that we are, thanks to Redline Steel out of Alabama, we are going to give away some metal signs. They are red line, blue line, and green line signs, or flags rather, that you can hang on your wall or do whatever with what you want. I'm going to post some pictures of those on Facebook, and they're also on our website at heroescomfort.org/shop if you want to check those out. And the way you'll be able to be entered to win those is either following us on Facebook or Instagram, referring a friend to follow us, and also we're going to send out newsletters. So if you sign up for a monthly newsletter, you'll be entered to win automatically there. So I hope that you enjoy those. If you win, you do get your choice of one. So good luck. And off to today's topic. We've been talking about gardening our lives and grounding skills. And what we mean by gardening our lives is just like when you're planting a vegetable garden or you're planting some flower beds or something like that, there's all kinds of good things that you need and want in order to make that bed or that garden flourish. You need good soil, you need the good nutrients, you need good seed, you need lots of water, you need sunshine most of the time, depending on the plant. And our backyards, our gardens are the same way. Those things include our relationships, our thoughts, our attitudes, our behaviors, and things like that. And speaking of thoughts, attitudes, behaviors, and whatnot, in our backyard, we are responsible for treasures that God has given us, psychological property, and they're fabulous treasures. FAB for feelings, attitudes, and behaviors. U, YOU, less treasures, fabulous treasures. And we need to manage these moment by moment. The first one is F, it stands for feelings or emotions. It describes how we listen to them and how we manage them. A is attitudes or thoughts. How do we direct our thoughts, or how do we redirect our thoughts if we catch ourselves having negative thoughts or self-despairing thoughts? And the last one is B for behaviors, and that's choosing what kind of behaviors we're going to act on or how we're going to act. Defining these, others is, no, I'm sorry, let me back up. There's a thing called the ozone, and it's areas that you want to work on in order to set healthy boundaries for yourself. We all know what boundaries are. Boundaries are walls, or not necessarily walls, but they're lines that we mark in the sand that say, okay, I'm not going to let XYZ influence me this way or that way. It's for our self-protection 9 times out of 10. Sometimes we put walls up to keep people out. That's not real. I mean, that can be a boundary, but that's not what I'm talking about in boundaries today. Boundaries, what I'm talking about today, again, are how to keep XYZ from happening. So the ozone consists of 3 O's. The first one is others. That's other people other than yourself. You are not responsible for other people. Now, I know that some of you are going to say, hey, wait a minute, Mike, I've got an issue with that. We are responsible for our children. To a point. We'll talk about that in a little bit, because I had the same discussion when I went through the grounding class. The next O stands for outcomes, and those are things that what's going to happen after right now in this moment. Is there anything that you can do about what's going to happen tomorrow? Chances are no. You're not going to be able to control whether you feel ill. You're not going to be able to control the weather. You're not going to be able to control whether your car has a flat tire. You're not going to be able to control the volume at your work, things like that. So that's outcomes. Old stuff, obviously, self-explanatory, things that happened before now. Nothing you can do about any of those things except learn from them. So we got to watch out for these 3 O's, or the ozones. We don't have control over them. We're not responsible for them, but we do care about them, and we can try and influence them appropriately. But God did not create us to control others, determine outcomes, and change old stuff. Our relationships with other people are very important. We all know that. But I'm not responsible. You're not responsible. Let me back up. I'm not responsible for any of your fabulous treasures. You're not responsible for mine. We're responsible for our own treasures and our own backyard. We are responsible for speaking the truth in love. In the Bible, in Ephesians 4, it says that we need to speak the truth in love. This doesn't mean that my truth is all truth. I'm responsible for voicing my views and sharing my fabulous treasures in a way that's honest, loving, respectful. Similarly, I'm responsible for listening to your fabulous treasures respectfully. Again, this fits well with God's golden rule of loving others as we love ourselves. And we're a faith-based organization. I understand that some people are going to be in different parts of their lives in that context, where they're at spiritually. Some may not believe, some may believe, some may have different beliefs. At any rate, if we just lived by these rules, loving others as we love ourselves, speaking the truth in love, how much better of a world, a society, would this be if we just did that? The Bible's an instruction guide to happiness, to love, to peace, to joy. Why? Who doesn't want that? Raise your hand. I dare you. Anyway, so when we're talking about the ozone, you need to watch out for them, and you need to garden your life with God. we naturally let these O's into our minds, and we often dupe ourselves into believing that we can control them. Trying to control the other's outcomes and old stuff is almost always a losing battle. Instead, try and catch yourself when you're entering that ozone, whichever one it may be, and commit those to prayer and focusing on your own, managing your own behaviors and your feelings and your attitudes as well. Ask God, the master gardener, to guide you and provide you with his wisdom and grace. He knows how to do it. He knows how to run it. He's the master. I mean, nobody has a greener thumb than he does. So as we manage our own treasures, we'll become energized to connect well with others. We'll be able to live and give freely and flourish. And it just makes sense. I'm going to share with you what's called a boundary map. And as you're looking at this map, you'll see that there's a couple of O's, or a couple of circles. The first one is God. He's our source of love, life, and wisdom. And Jesus is the vine. Let's say God's the tree. Jesus is the vine that branches out away from God, or not away from God, but from God. And your feelings, attitudes, and behaviors are found here through Jesus. You're responsible for your own fabulous treasures right now. The next slide is the boundaries map. As you see here, there's 2 circles, and this is an example. There could be 5 circles, there could be 10 circles. Anyways, you are not responsible to each other, not for each other. You are responsible to each other. I think I missaid that. You are responsible to each other, but not for each other. I'm responsible to Dan Yildeffenbaugh on part of our group. I'm responsible to him to speak the truth in love, to encourage him, to invite him to work on whatever he's struggling with, to walk beside him. That's what I'm responsible to him. That's how I'm responsible to him. But I'm not responsible for him. So if he decides to go and punch a wall, make a hole in the wall, or he decides to dive into a bottle, I'm not responsible for that. He is. So that kind of gives you an idea of this. Now, let's talk about kids. With kids, let's see how the best way to put this, the way I understand it. Yes, we are responsible for raising our children, but if we are raising them correctly, using what we know about boundaries and feelings and attitudes and behaviors and the ozone, if we're raising them according to good moral standards, we won't have to be responsible for them. They're responsible for themselves. We're responsible to them, responsible for making sure that they have food to eat, that they get a proper education or health care. We're responsible for them or to them to make sure that they have the necessities of life, to make sure that they have an opportunity to get to know God, to have an opportunity to pursue their dreams. We are responsible to them to help them do those kind of things. So just a couple of questions for you to ponder and think about. How does it feel to stop your focus on the ozones and to redirect your thoughts into identifying your own feelings, attitudes, and behaviors right now? How does that feel to you to know that you're not responsible for others' outcomes and old stuff, but for your own feelings, attitudes, and behaviors? To me, that's kind of freeing, knowing that I don't have to be responsible for my teenagers' attitude that they get at school, or I'm not responsible for what happened to the person out in the field that was hunting and they did something silly and not advised, and they ended up hurting themselves or somebody else. So those are the kind of things. In closing, I just want to say a couple things. As I manage my own fab, Euless Treasures, I'm energized to connect well with other people. I'm able to give freely. I'm responsible for myself. I am free and much more capable to be responsible to others, not for them, but to them. Um, to garden your relationships by doing your part, you can be responsible to other people and not for other people. I would encourage you this week to spend some time reflecting on these things that we've talked about. Hope if you are a Christian um, or are working to figure that out, I would encourage you to read the Bible. Matthew, in the book of Matthew 18, verses 15 through 17, it reads, "If your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault just between the two of you." So what it's saying is go to speak to the person that you're concerned about and speak the truth as you understand it in love, respecting that they likely have a different perspective if they are indeed doing something wrong. Most often it's circumstances. It's not circumstances. So that covers that for today. I want to thank you for tuning in for what time I've taken of your day. I hope that you got something from this, whether it be, sorry about that. It's going to conclude our discussion for this week. I thank you for tuning in and watching. Know that I will be praying for you, each of you. Whether you want me to or not, I'm going to do it. And all it's doing is trying to help you, brothers and sisters. So be blessed, stay safe, be well. Love you.